The Throwback Thursday series continues. Locked On Brewers. The countdown is at number 6 and number 5. Don't go anywhere. You're Locked On Brewers.
You are Locked On Brewers, your daily Milwaukee Brewers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, everybody, to Locked On Brewers. I'm Dominic Catronio with Vinny Routino. Thanks for making us your first listen of the day. I'm a statistician / play-by-play man. He's a former big leaguer turned broadcaster. This Thursday series continues, as is the Throwback Thursday series. Today we are at number 6 and number 5 of our top 20 games of the year. If you want to listen back to any of our other installments of this countdown, just scroll up on your podcast feed or here on our YouTube page. And while you're at it, go ahead and subscribe, like, comment, rate, whatever it needs to do, whatever makes your heart, happy and warm inside. It helps us out a long way by liking and subscribing wherever you get your podcast or even on YouTube as well. So, Vinny, we've got two great games here. We've also got some CBA headlines to talk about real quick as well. But first, I want to go back to our number 6 game of the year, which is the Corbin Burnes 10 strikeout game at Wrigley. That's 10 strikeouts in a row, that is. What do you remember about this night?
So I remember that the game was over before fans started to sit down and drink their Budweisers, right? Or their popcorn, eating their popcorn, because the Brewers scored a touchdown in the first, and then Corbin Burnes obviously was pitching completely dominantly all year long. But I mean, he was brilliant this game. The only thing I remember really is that it was just a trouncing of the Cubs. Flew the L pretty early that game. So that was a fun one to watch.
It was crazy. I was working this game with Brian Anderson and Chris Singleton. So it was a whole lot of fun to work that one. And as a statistician, it is the busiest night, but busy in a good way to look up everything that he was breaking in that game. The other game was actually Corbin's previous start to this game against the San Francisco Giants at home, a Friday night thriller against Logan Webb and the Giants, what turned out to be a great pitching matchup, extra innings, and BA had the legendary call on it, the summer of Rowdy continues, when he had the walk-off in the 10th inning. I remember this series just being, all right, finally, we get the two best in the NL going head-to-head. The Giants were still, yes, it was August, but for some reason, people were still saying, oh, I wonder if Giants can do this all year. I wonder if Giants... It's August. They're doing it all year. And the Brewers are at the same boat. Like, yeah, they're doing it all year, too. This was a heavyweight battle and a really, really fun series.
It really was. It really put both teams on the map. I think people started to realize that the Giants were for real. I think people were realizing at this point that the Brewers were for real. A couple of the best teams squaring off in the league. And then I think also part of this game that stood out to me was that Logan Webb has put himself on the map as one of the most dominant pitchers in the league. So it was a really good pitching matchup. Really fun one to watch for sure.
Yeah, so we'll be recapping these two games shortly here. But first, let's get to some national headlines here as CBA talks are continuing, trying to end the lockout for Major League Baseball. Now they are under the time crunch. Pitchers and catchers are supposed to be reporting right around Valentine's Day. So we are 11 days away from when pitchers and catchers are supposed to be reporting. I have sources telling me that coaches are packing up and acting like they have to be ready for spring training in case that is the case, as in equipment trucks will be arriving in these respective, spring training facilities in case it happens at the drop of a hat. But with the reports coming out this week of the meetings, the most recent meeting coming on Tuesday from Evan Dorelic and Jeff Passan saying they're still very far apart. But I just want to tap the brakes on this real quick. I've been saying this since the very beginning of the lockout. Both sides are going to be leaking what they want to leak to the media, meaning they want to make it look like the owners are the greedier, or the owners want it to look like the players are greedy. It's part of the negotiation process. We've always said it's going to get worse before it gets better. This is the part where it gets worse, where it feels imminent, where it feels like, oh my gosh, you're not making any progress. I still truly believe opening day will be on time. I still believe that no matter how poor the headlines are and how they've been this week.
Yeah, I think so. I'm going to take your word for that because I get a little bit panicky and nervous about the season not starting. However, when you really take a step back and look at it and take that, what is the saying, 50,000 foot view? Is it 50,000?
50,000 insert, 35,000 feet up, like a plane.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you take that view and you realize, wait a minute, they're not that kind of, for lack of a better word, dumb to let this play out into the season. They're really not. Both sides are not. And so I kind of just trust that. I trust that they're not that dumb. That they're going to be smarter than this. And like you said, this is part of the negotiation process where they're trying to put a little heat on the other side. And like you said, leak stuff to the media to make it look like the owners are at fault or the players are at fault. They're the reason why nothing's going anywhere, blah, blah, blah. So, I'm going to just trust that and take your word for it, but then also just trust that longer view, that bigger view, the bigger picture idea that they're not going to let this thing go into the season.
Do I think spring training's first week or two could be in jeopardy? Absolutely. I
Yeah.
still refuse to believe that opening day is in jeopardy. I refuse to
Right.
believe that on February 3rd. Okay. Now, if you talk to me on March 3rd and we're still in this position,
Yeah.
yes, I would be very worried. But I am not worried right now about opening day 2022. Spring training's a different conversation. Opening day is what matters. You would
Right.
sacrifice all of spring training right now if it means that opening day starts on time. I think everybody would take that deal right now. I know, and even as an Arizonan who loves going to spring training games, and Florida would be mad too, but like, look, it's spring training. They're exhibitions. You can get your work in on the backfields as a team. You don't necessarily have to do it in front of fans. It's just a way to make money. It's what it comes down to. Spring training is a way to make money while the guys get their work in.
Yeah, spring training, I always remember it as for even for a player like me that was trying to grind his way onto a roster, it is a grind. It is
Yeah.
long. It is about 4 weeks too long. I'm telling you, I could have been
Mhm.
ready for the season after 2 weeks. Maybe not even that, right? I mean, it's just a lot. It's a lot. It's long. It can get boring at times, and you just want the season to start. You're ready for real competition, even in minor league camp. So,
Oh my gosh, yeah.
um, yeah. So I would say that the players are going to be fine. It is a tough spot to be in now for the players and the coaches, where they don't know if they're going to be with their families next week or if they're going to be at home for another month. So that is a different part of this that I'm sure a lot of players and coaches haven't experienced. So, yeah, you kind of feel for that side of it, but yeah, I think the season's going to start at the end of the day, and I do wish this was over sooner than later. I'll say last thing I'll say is that you do want a fair deal. You don't want one side or the other really winning this thing because that's not good for the game. You really want them to hash out a fair deal, and that's what I'm hoping for.
Agreed. And I have a full CBA breakdown. I've been working on the research all week. I'm going to break it down tomorrow on our YouTube page. I might make it a podcast form as well here on your podcast feed. So be on the lookout for that tomorrow as well. Trying to make everything they're arguing about in a digestible, listenable manner. So that way folks can kind of, and maybe we'll have CBA updates throughout next week and the weeks that follow because it's going to start moving quickly here. And, reading as much as I have about this is just kind of like rattling my brain of, oh my gosh, it's not just millionaires versus billionaires. It's a lot deeper than that. But one quick thing to wrap this up, it was reported today by John Heyman that it seems to be a closed deal as far as universal DH goes in 2022.
Okay.
Neither side can really make a compelling enough argument to not have it. And the players were worried, well, maybe that last guy on the bench, the 26th man on the roster that can play multiple positions in the National League, he now is suddenly out of a job. But then the counter is that, well, now all these 15 other teams add a different sort of job, and now your pitchers it's very complicated. But Heyman is reporting that the DH is coming in 2022. I'll believe it when I see it, but I'm excited for that personally.
I like that. I like that idea. We talked about this. I don't personally care that you make a great move managerial wise in the eighth inning to save a guy from coming in out of the bullpen or have a great matchup. I'd rather see more offense.
Agreed. Agreed.
Yeah.
I'd love that. So that's our CBA update for now. We'll have more coming in the week, so keep it locked here on Locked On Brewers and our social media pages as well for all the updates that follow there as well. So let's get on with our Throwback Thursday series. Before we do that, we're going to tell you about Built Bar. The new year, of course, rolls on. Groundhog Day was yesterday, and Built Bar trying to keep you onto your New Year's resolutions. Of course, there's only 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. And yet, they're still covered in 100% real chocolate. If you want to eat healthy, but it just gets so boring. By here, February, first week of February, you're over it. You just want something that tastes good and it's actually good for you. That's Built Bar. Even if you're not a huge fan of working out, it can be that sweet, tasty treat that you have that actually isn't going to, do the nutritional detriment that a candy bar does. There's so many flavors that make you think you're eating a candy bar. Coconut almond, peanut butter brownie, raspberry, cookies and cream, salted caramel, mint brownie, so many more. You can find all of their flavors in their entire product lineup at built.com. That's BUILT.com. And you can use our promo code LOCKED15. That's LOCKED15. And you're going to get 15% off thanks to our friends at built.com. Game number 6 on the countdown, Vinny. We got a lot of Corbin Burnes on this episode, my friend. First and foremost, we're going down to Wrigley, taking on the hated Cubs, of course. This is back on August 11th, 2021. The Brewers coming in at 68-46 in first place in the Central, starting to really get things clicking for them against the Cubs, who were reeling at this point. This was they were at this point on a 5-game losing streak. It would end up becoming an 11-game losing streak after this game as well. They were 52-63 after selling everybody a week and a half earlier at the trade deadline. So you mentioned it in our tease at the very top of the show that before Corbin Burnes even touched the ball, it was 7-0 Brewers in the top of the first inning. I was working this game with Singy and BA, and my keyboard was already smoking from the first inning of just looking up everything. Colton Wong hit 2 doubles in the first inning. It was, and this is, I think, what was really silly. 34 pitches into the game, it was 7-0 against Jake Arrieta. And this is the game that effectively ended Jake Arrieta as a Cub in his season. He went to the Padres briefly and didn't pitch great there either. But this is momentum. One thing led to another. And to give Corbin Burnes 7-0 after a half inning of play, it's like, good night, see you later. What's it like in a dugout in those moments, man? Like seeing the revolving door going of 7 runs to just jump out of the gates that hot.
No, that's a fun dugout to be in. I'll tell you that. That's you certainly don't want to be the guy that is going to make an out in the first time through the order and then and then you're almost hoping you don't get up so you don't have to make 2 outs in one inning. I've done that a few times. It's not a good feeling, but it is a fun feeling to be part of that dugout. You can feel that the pitcher feels the momentum shift way towards the offensive side of the ball right here. And you can sense that the guy's uncomfortable out there. Jake Arrieta couldn't come out of the game. They just played a doubleheader the day before, so their bullpen was just absolutely taxed. So Jake Arrieta had to kind of wear it, for lack of a better term. He ended up going 4 anyway in this game. But everyone can feel that you got the pitcher on the ropes. There's a ton of pressure on that guy. It seems like every ball that's put in play finds a hole, which was also the case. Some ground balls did find holes in that inning. So that's a fun feeling. It's a good feeling. And obviously you almost feel like, okay, we won the game after that 7-run first inning.
I don't believe a lot in win probability. The graphs that show where the team stands based on certain plays and win probability added, things like that. Win probability before Corbin Burnes even stepped on the mound after that top of the first was 93% already. Not even you're 3 outs into the game and it's already 93%. I think that tells you everything you know. And oh, by the way, you're facing the future NL Cy Young. Good freaking luck. Now,
right.
A lot of this game was crazy. Obviously, we're getting to the 10 consecutive strikeouts. But while Jake Arrieta threw 37 pitches in the top of the first inning, Corbin Burnes threw 4 in the bottom of the first inning. So if you want to talk about absolutely slamming the door shut, that's how you do it. And I think the irony of all of this is that it was maybe the most dominant pitching performance to this point in the year. Because remember, this is August 11th. Exactly a month later, Corbin would throw the no-hitter. But to this point in the year, it was the most dominant pitching performance of the year for a guy that didn't throw a no-hitter because the first batter of the game had a base hit, Rafael Ortega. Just poked one through the left side for a base hit. So no hitters out the window immediately off the back after a 7-0 first inning. Like, all right, well, it's just going to be a regular old blowout perhaps. And then he gets a 4-pitch inning thanks to a double play. And we kind of looked at each other like, okay, normally 7-0 starts become 3.5, 4-hour games. So we're all for that inside of the press box, especially when we're calling the game remotely.
Yeah, I mean, he was absolutely brilliant in terms of throwing strikes and getting outs and being efficient, and he was that way all year long. The guy had just an uncanny ability to stay present and execute pitch to pitch, which was I think the biggest part of his maturation process. Yes, he fixed his mechanics a little bit. He got more online. He was more in the lanes of with his delivery. His arm action was kind of really synced up in terms of not closing off too much, all that stuff. Phenomenal. Like Chris Hook in the whole pitching lab team and the whole data analytics team and the pitching team, they did a phenomenal job with Corbin Burnes. But his ability to work on the mental side of the game and be present and execute every single pitch, was the biggest part of his maturation. And he obviously showed that, because you can lose your concentration pretty easily in a game like this, especially up 7-0 in the first.
And he certainly kept that concentration starting with the second inning. So the second inning is when the 10 consecutive strikeouts began. He struck out the side 1, 2, 3. It was against Frank Schwindel, Matt Duffy, and Greg Deichmann. Now, Schwindel and Deichmann, for both of them, it was their first time facing Corbin Burnes. So, and there were some swings in this game that you could tell, oh man, I never saw that pitch. What's that feeling like? Like when you see a guy that you know is nasty, is there a pitcher that you face in the big leagues or even in the minors that I still haven't seen it and I've seen it on tape kind of feeling?
Yeah, so this looked like Corbin Burnes was throwing wiffle balls. Like all year long, it really looked like he was. I mean, go on YouTube and I played with the John Boy guys at American Family Field, and I looked at some of these pitches, that these wiffle balls, it's called a blitz ball, were coming in at me, and it looks absolutely filthy, right? The movement on these pitches. This looks like what Corbin Burnes is doing with a real baseball in his hand, with multiple pitches at 98 miles an hour. I guarantee you, nobody in the big leagues, no hitter. I don't care if you're Mike Trout or Fernando Tatis. Nobody wants to face Corbin Burnes. Nobody.
He was indeed one of those nights, absolutely filthy Cy Young type Corbin Burnes. And I was looking back, this was kind of the night the Cy Young momentum really started to generate, and it helps that he breaks or ties a major league record, which was originally set by terrific Tom Seaver. So I'm just going to go through the 10 strikeouts here because his next 10 outs, starting with the second inning, were all strikeouts. Okay, so we mentioned Schwindel strikeout swinging on a slider, Matt Duffy swinging on a curveball, Greg Deichmann swinging on a changeup. So boom, 3 different pitches right there. David Bodie strikeout swinging on a slider. Andrew Romine strikeout swinging on a cutter, 4 pitches now. Jake Arrieta strikeout swinging on a curveball. Then for the Rafael Ortega there in the 4th inning, strikeout swinging on an elevated cutter. Kind of looked like a fastball in my opinion. Then Wilson Contreras strikeout on an elevated fastball. Also really kind of looked like a cutter. They called it a cutter. It looked like a fastball to me. Ian Happ strikes out on a really nasty cutter up and in on the hands, all swinging. And then finally to lead off the top of the 4th inning, the top of the 5th inning, Frank Schwindel strikes out on 3 pitches, slider swinging, is 10 consecutive strikeouts. 3rd time ever a pitcher has struck out 10 consecutive batters in a game. The other 2 times, as we mentioned, Tom Seaver was the first to do it back in April of 1970 against the San Diego Padres. And it also happened earlier this year, back in June, early in 2021, I should say. Aaron Nola did it against the Mets in Queens. He did it. Technically, the first 10 outs of his game were strikeouts because he allowed the first 2 batters to reach in that game. And he nearly got it to 11, did Nola, because he had a 1-2 count on Pete Alonso, and he just looped a double down the right field line, just lunging, totally flail swing, and he kept it fair by a couple of inches and was that close for making it 11 consecutive strikeouts for Aaron Nola. Burnes didn't get that opportunity because Matt Duffy swung at the first pitch after the 10th straight strikeout and got a base hit into right field. I find this very hard to believe, but after the game, Corbin said he had no idea that he had 10 strikeouts in a row, that they took the ball out of play and it went to Jason Schauger, and he saw Narvaez toss. He's like, I don't know why. I didn't know what happened. And then when I came back in the dugout, I was like, you just struck out 10 consecutive batters. Like, oh, cool. Like he was just very nonchalant about it. I find that very hard to believe that he didn't know. But I mean, I've heard of the zone, and it sounds like he was in the zone.
And that goes back to what I was talking about. The guy has really developed his ability to stay present and execute pitches, and I actually believe that. I've seen guys get into the zone like that where they're just so locked in, they have really no idea what's going on externally around them. But man, this guy was so good. 54 swings. He threw 99 pitches, 54 swings, 30 swings and misses, which is an absolutely insane number. And then he had so then 74 strikes
Mhm.
out of 99 pitches. That's crazy. 74 strikes out of 99 pitches. So if you do the math, the ones that were swung at 54, so 20 were called strikes. So what I broke this down on the pre and post game show. His ability to throw that backdoor cutter has been a game changer for him to lefties. So now all of a sudden he's dominating lefties because of that 96 to 98 mile an hour cutter is located off the plate away and then comes back over right at the last second. It's an absolutely unhittable pitch, and that's why he is getting a lot more called strikes as well. But I mean, he's got the whole repertoire. I mean, it's just fun to watch. It's like watching either wiffle ball or what is the I don't play video games. What is it? MLB
MLB
2K?
The Show, yeah, it would be
MLB
MLB
the
The Show.
show. It's like watching that. Like a guy with 99s on everything is like watching that with ability to command everything. So he's really. I'm glad the Brewers have him for a couple
Yeah.
more years at least.
The offense is the afterthought. Cool, they won 10-0, but this story was all about Corbin Burnes on this game. Do you want me to blow your mind with some numbers here, real quick, from this
Yeah,
as we wrap up this game? So, first and foremost, during the 10 consecutive strikeouts, he threw 41 pitches. 41 pitches to get 10 outs, all of them by strikeouts. And of the 41 pitches, 32 were strikes. He only threw 9 balls to 10 straight
that's
batters.
insane.
He struck out more batters in the stretch that he faced than he threw pitches out of the zone. Okay? That's one of the mind-blowing stats. Next mind-blowing stat is he had 18 swinging strikes of the 32 in that stretch. So more than half of his strikes were swings and misses. And furthermore, all 10 strikeouts were swinging. No subjectivity involved. No like strengths on, oh, his zone was wide. All 10 major league hitters swung and missed at strike three. That is, I can't explain how hard, it's just not going to be done again. We don't know, we don't have pitch data for Tom Seaver 1970. Nola had 3 strikeouts looking in his 10 consecutive. I don't know if we're ever going to see 10 straight swings and miss strikeouts ever in baseball again.
Yeah, probably not. I mean, unless Burns does it. I mean,
Unless he does it to 11.
Yeah, unless Burns does it, or maybe someone like DeGrom, because they have similar type of dominant stuff. So
And DeGrom did have
we'll
a
see.
9 consecutive strikeout game, 9 consecutive strikeouts earlier in the year against Colorado, but didn't get it to 10.
Yeah, and like you said, I love the fact that you said major league hitters. I don't care that it's the Cubs and they sold everybody off. There's still really good hitters. There's good contact hitters within that lineup that just totally looked like little leaguers compared to Corbin Burnes in this outing.
All right, these are my last mind-blowing stats from this game before we move on to the next one. So Burnes finished this game, 8 innings pitched. He might have got a complete game shutout if his spot didn't come up in the order in the 8th inning. He got a complete game shutout, or did not get a complete game shutout. 8 innings pitched, 4 hits, no runs, 0 walks, and 15 strikeouts. Second most strikeouts in a single game in Brewers history. Ben Sheets has the record. He had 18. So I went down a rabbit hole here. We have data back to 1901 on Baseball Reference. How many games has there been 15 strikeouts and no walks in baseball history? Okay, 15 strikeouts, no walks. That's it. No innings requirement, no runs requirement. 55. Okay, we're going to start with 55. Okay, so now we're going to add in some more superlatives here. So 15 strikeouts, no walks, and no runs allowed. That number is cut in half to 24. Okay, now let's go further. No extra base hits allowed. That number drops to 15. No hit batters. That number drops to 12. And no wild pitches. That number drops to 11. 10 other games. This was 11, number 11 in baseball history to have 15 strikeouts, no walks, no hit batters, no runs allowed, no extra base hits, and no wild pitches. You could argue he did not make a bad pitch in this game.
Yeah, And you could argue that it was a better pitched game than his no-hitter or his combined no-hitter. You could certainly make that
It's
argument,
crazy.
especially after what you just kind of went through. 11 other games or 10 other games
And
that
there's
were
2 no-hitters on this list, by the way, too, of the
oh
other
wow.
games. There's
Yeah.
2 no-hitters in it. So I think it's
Insane.
wild. A
Insane.
Nolan Ryan and a Roger Clemens. It's crazy.
And it's
That's
crazy that you find these things too, Dom. So kudos to you, hat tip.
This is my job. This is what I
Yeah.
do. I'm a nerd. Shout out to Corbin Burnes. He's very good, well deserving of the Cy Young. That's game number 6 on our top 20 of 2021 countdown. Before we get to game number 5 on our countdown here on this fine Thursday, we want to remind you about Bet Online. They have you covered this season with more props, more odds, and more lines than ever before as football continues here at the end of the playoffs, of course, and right to the big game coming up next Sunday. BetOnline.net remains the best spot for all of your sports scores, podcasts, and news on the season. And it's not just football. BetOnline has up-to-the-minute info on pro and college hoops, NHL, boxing, UFC, along with live real-time updates of current games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the new amazing offers available for the 2022 season. BetOnline, where the game starts. Game number 5. Now, I want to say this. We know what the games number 1 and 2 are, right? We've known since this countdown began, whether it's going to be the no-hitter or the walk-off Vogie Grand Slam. I think these next 2 episodes, today's episode and next week's episode, are the games that are, oh my gosh, that game's epic. It would be number 1 in any other year that didn't have a walk-off Grand Slam and a no-hitter, okay? This game maybe was like my favorite top-to-bottom game to work all year. August 6th, literally 5 days before the game we just covered. Corbin Burnes against Logan Webb, the number 1 San Francisco Giants, the leaders in the pennant for the National League at this point. They're 69-40 under the helm of Gabe Kapler. They're up 4 games in the National League West at this point, too. The Brewers, they're up 7.5 games. They're at 65-44. Again, the 2 best teams in the National League going head-to-head at American Family Field for a 3-game weekend series. And you get an ace versus ace matchup with Webb versus Burnes. And it was every bit of a pitcher's duel as you would have expected. Burnes wiggled out of a jam in the first inning. Avi Garcia hit a home run to make it 1-0. This game would go to extras in a 1-run game. But both of these guys were just dueling. They were getting out of jams. Strikeouts were coming in. It was just an absolutely treat to watch. And it was a game that the Giants have a really funky, deep bench, and they use a ton of pinch hitters. And even Craig Counsell had to get creative with his lineup, too, with how he was going to manage Burnes. He was a final out of a couple of innings a couple of times, which gave him an extra inning. But, man, watching these two, I know we just talked about DH and everything, but watching these two guys having to navigate both their starters absolutely dominating and trying to figure out, when do I go into my bullpen? When do I figure this out? That's when I think you realize how good the Brewers have it with Craig Counsell at the helm right now.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. And I think you'll probably get into this. I don't know. We didn't, believe it or not, everybody, we don't really rehearse these shows beforehand. These masterpieces come out just like as we're talking, kind of at a bar or something, talking about the games, which I do love. The improvisation of it a little bit. But anyway, you'll probably get into this. This is Counsell's 500th win.
Yes.
Yeah, and you're right. It's and people forget that this was when there's a bunch of guys on the COVID list as well.
Mm-hmm.
So Hader was on the COVID list. So like you said, Burnes was probably going to have to go deeper into this game in order for the Brewers to win this game. And this was an important series because if all of a sudden the Giants come into town and sweep the Brewers or something, they're looking at the Reds. And I was always worried about the Reds. I never was really worried about the Cardinals. I just saw the Reds lineup and their pitching staff, and I thought that they were coming and they had a weaker schedule than the Brewers did to finish the season. And they played the Cubs a bunch. They played the Pirates a bunch. And I thought the Reds were going to catch the Brewers or at least give them a run for their money. And so that's why this series was so huge for me. And the Brewers, was this the second game of the series or the first
game of the series?
Yeah. So to start off this game of the series and to win was absolutely huge, bigger than people realize.
And a big thing with this too was the fact that it was your best against their best. You know, it wasn't. Yeah, you can say, oh, COVID and Hader was out and Yelich was out and Hauser was placed on that day. They were starting to really drop like flies at that point. But still, it was exactly who you wanted on the mound to start the game, and they had their best on the mound. And at this point, the
Yeah,
Giants were healthy. Belt was still on the team. He makes an impact in this game.
man, was he
Crawford is
good?
having a heck of a season. Their bench was amazing. Lamont Wade was white hot at this point. It was really, and Buster Posey went ice cold this whole series, but Buster
Right.
Posey still had an epic season. It was just, it's so fun when it's a great analogy because it's true, and it is a little bit of a cliche, but it is a heavyweight boxing match because it's going to be entertaining. You know exactly what you're going to get. It should go the distance kind of thing, or at any given moment, you're going to get that big knockout punch. And this was a go the distance type, epic, little detail, true. Oh, it was just a gripping game is the best way I could probably describe it, because a 1-1 game in extra innings, just with the extra inning rule too, certainly keeps you on the edge of your seat. But let's just get into a couple of quick things here. Avi Garcia hits a home run in the bottom of the second off Logan Webb. And I went back and looked at his spray chart, Webb spray chart, as far as in the zone of where he allowed home runs this year. And I tweeted this out this morning. This will be, it's insane. It's absolutely insane that this pitch was a ball. It was not a bad pitch that Logan Webb made, a slider down in the way. And Avi, in his grown man strength, just went down and got it and somehow pulled this ball that was almost in the other batter's box down and away into the Brewers bullpen and left center field. It's just funny. I see this diagram, right? And if you're not looking at it, I'm going to tweet it here Thursday morning. Like this little dot, you can tell exactly which one I'm talking about. You've got the square, and then you've got one extra dot. Like, oh, I wonder where that one is. It must be a poke the other way or something. Nope, he pulled that ball. And I'm going to remember that every time. Avi hitting a home run to left center on a 3-2 pitch, mind you, as well.
Yeah, Avi really came on late too, right? I mean, he hit. I think this was his 19th home run of the season, and what did he end up with? Over 30. And so he really came on late last 6 weeks of the season, and this was, I think, the start of it. He started to have a lot more consistent quality at bats, and I talked to Andy Haynes about what Avi Garcia did, and that's all he did. He told him that he's got to just change his mental approach, have better at bats. And if you're not going to hit those sliders, you better take them. So he hit that one and he hit it out, and he's so strong that he was able to put it into the bullpen. But that was obviously a huge part of the game.
Huge. And later in the inning, the Brewers actually got runners on second and third, but Burnes hitting for himself actually struck out to end that inning. So they let Webb get off the hook, and he would hit a groove. Actually, Webb would not allow, he would only allow one base runner for the next 4 innings. He really slammed the door after that home run by Garcia. And obviously, a lot of folks never gave the Giants enough credit. We're kind of guilty being in the Central time zone. Central and Eastern time zone have a hard time watching the Giants, of course, being 2 hours behind us. Man, I mean, I'm spoiled because I watch a lot of Bay Area baseball with the A's and the Giants. Like I'm used to staying up and watching these games or listening to my dad or whomever. And I'm listening to these games. I'm listening to John. I'm like, they're doing it again. They're doing it again. And seeing it firsthand, doing it to the Brewers, I'm like, they're doing it again. it's when is this going to stop? And then Brandon Belt comes to the plate against Corbin Burnes. Again, not a terrible pitch. A cutter in on the hands, a little bit middle zone, but it was in, and Belt was just quick enough. And that was an impressive swing to tie it up at 1-1 there in the 5th inning.
Belt was white hot against the Brewers, and he unfortunately for the Giants, he wasn't healthy all year because he figured something out. He really rejuvenated himself and his career this last year with his ability. I don't know what he changed. I got to talk to somebody within the game to figure out what he did, because this is a new Brandon Belt. You could not get a pitch by this guy. The Brewers couldn't anyway. And he figured something out. I mean, that was a nasty pitch. And like you say, I mean, he just looks like he's got a tennis racket in his hand. That was a Rafael Nadal forehand over the right into the right field bleachers. That was an impressive piece of hitting right there.
Yeah, to your point, over the last 2 years, including the shortened season in 2020 and then here in 2021, you combine those 2 years, it's a pretty good sample size, 148 games, because remember, he missed the last month of the year, the last couple of weeks, I should say. He missed roughly 70 games this year due to injury, but he broke his thumb at the end of the year, and so he missed the entire playoffs, and so the Giants really wish they had him, but then the Dodgers counter, oh, well, they didn't have Max Muncy, which is absolutely true. Anyway, over the last 2 years, Brandon Belt, 148 games played. He's got 38 homers, hitting 285 with a 988 OPS.
Wow.
And his OPS plus during this time, again, 100 being league average, anything above 100 is above average, was 165 over the last 2 years.
Wow.
And oh, by the way, 2021 was a walk year, and he just took the qualifying offer heading into 2022 before the lockout. So he's going to get paid $18 million this year.
And he should. I mean, like I said, I got to talk to some people around the game. What did he do? Because, maybe consult that hitting coach that kind of figured him out, because he was not good for a while there. And all of a sudden he's turned into a MVP type of a bat. I mean, you do not want to face Brandon Belt when he's swinging a bat right now. You just don't. So hopefully the Brewers can avoid that next year. But he looked really, really good.
In this series, by the way, he went 4 for 10 with all 4 hits being home runs. So
unbelievable.
He hit 2 homers on Saturday in this series, so pretty wild.
Yeah.
Fast forwarding, it's still 1-1. You mentioned it earlier. COVID has been ravaging the Brewers at this point in the year. Josh Hader is not available. So thanks to Corbin Burnes getting through the 7th inning, he gets a strikeout against pinch hitter Wilmer Flores. So he ends his day after 7, which is exactly what Craig Counsell needed, exactly what the bullpen needed. So he goes 7, 4 hits, 1 run it was earned, 1 walk, and 5 strikeouts against the Giants, and he turns it over to the bullpen. Brad Boxberger has the 8th inning as opposed to the 7th, and he shuts it down. 1, 2, 3, no problem at all. Devin Williams has to have the 9th inning because, again, no hitter, and it's still a tied game, by the way. It's still 1-1. So in theory, all right, we're using our closer in the 9th inning, not saving the closer because you don't know if there's going to be a 10th. You want to just go ahead and use him and lock it down. So Williams locks it down in the 9th inning. Brewers do not score in the bottom half of the inning. So now we go to extras. And who does Craig Counsell call on but the Raptor? Brent Suter comes in top of the 10th in a 1-run game of the top 2 seeds in the National League. Absolutely thriller of a game. And the Raptor just zooming through the lineup, man, going quick. He gets a strikeout of Austin Slater. Then he gets Darren Ruff to line out to left, and then a strikeout of Donovan Solano at a 90-mile-an-hour fastball from Brent Suter. He hit 90 to close out the top of the 10th, and it was the most fired up I had seen him all season.
He was pumped up, yeah, for sure. Obviously, that's why he hit 90 on the gun, but he's always fun to watch. I love Brent Suter. Ruff did hit a missile. I remember I thought it was a lot of trouble, and obviously going to score a run, right, if it gets over. Yeah, if it gets down. So that was a huge out, obviously. A little bit of a break, but love the Raptor. Glad he was able to get out of that, and then obviously you'll take it over in the bottom.
And I want to remind folks the wackiness that the Giants had all year. They ended the season with a major league record 18 pinch hit home runs. That's really hard to comprehend because a week and a half later, they would do it in back-to-back games. They would have pinch hit home runs to win the game in the top of the 9th inning against the Oakland A's in back-to-back games. That was the first time that had ever happened in big league history to have game-winning home runs from a pinch hitter in back-to-back games. This is what they did all year. So having all these pinch hitters roll up, they had like a 7-man bench the way they arranged their bullpen. It was wacky the way that Gabe Kapler had things because he never really had a set 5-man starting rotation. Things were really bonkers for the Giants, so they could really be creative with the way they use their benches. 18 pinch hit home runs, so there was definitely reason to be concerned. Like, all right, this guy's got some pop, and they were really big on matchups and histories against guys, and they survived it with Brent Suter, and then just 4 pitches into the bottom of the 10th, the Summer of Rowdy, base hit down a left field line on a 1-2 pitch, just kind of jam shot other way, gets enough of it to win it. I got some Rowdy numbers for you if you would be so inclined to hear these, because the Summer of Rowdy was pretty great. Remember, he was acquired right before the trade deadline. Started off pretty slow there, well before the trade deadline, I should say, in early July. And then started out a little slow and then really got things going. And this was the peak of it. So for his in the night before, mind you, or I should say the day before, Wednesday, because they had Thursday off. So this is a Friday night. They had Thursday off. On Wednesday afternoon, he came off the bench and hit a 3-run home run to take the lead against the Pirates and put that game out of reach. So everyone was already still fired up from that. So now Friday night, he gets the walk-off base hit. And this caps off a stretch of 13 games in which he hit .409, going 18 for 44, with 3 doubles, 5 homers, 15 runs batted in. That is another darn good David Stearns acquisition from this past season. The Summer of Rowdy was a perfect call.
Yeah, he
Or the legend
really
of Rowdy, I should say. The legend.
yeah, the legend of Rowdy is what BA said. I didn't want to correct you, but it was a great call either way. Summer of Rowdy would have worked too. But ever since the day that I kind of look at Rowdy till as July 23rd, that's when he started playing every day. Was against the White Sox when the White Sox came into town, and he started playing every day. Vogelbach, I think, was hurt. I think he had that hamstring issue, and obviously Keston Hiura was down in the minor league. So Rowdy got a chance to play every day. 840 OPS the rest of the way, right? It was really productive. 145 plate appearances. I'm sorry, 156 plate appearances, only 28 strikeouts. So, I mean, the guy is a hitter first. I continue to say that, but with a ton of power. And then what he did to make his adjustment was his ability to just get a little bit more aggressive. He was a little passive when he was with the Blue Jays and let some balls, go by that were hittable pitches. He's got such a great eye, and he's got such good strike zone discipline, and he's got such a short swing. They told him, hey, let's get a little aggressive and do some damage. And that's what he did. And that's the adjustment that he made. And I think, and I continue to say this, Rowdy's going to be one of the key hitters next year for the Brewers because he's made this adjustment and he's ready to take that next step.
It's going to be a lot of fun to watch what the legend of Rowdy grows into. He's going to make an appearance next week as well as we continue with our top 20 games of the year countdown. This was game number 5, August 6th against the Giants. Brewers win 2-1 in 10 innings. Next week, you got number 4 and number 3, which is really the last one of drama, I should say, of what games are going to pop up here because we know what number 1 and 2 are. Rowdy's going to appear next week, and I think that kind of gives it away what game he's going to be appearing in next week.
Dom, I haven't even looked at your calendar yet because I want to be surprised when I get prepared for the show because this has been a lot of fun to do these with you, Dom.
Well, these are great. Thanks so much for listening, everybody. That is it for this week's Throwback Thursday. Again, be on the lookout. We're going to have a CBA update tomorrow as we see fit, depending if there's more news coming out. If they have another meeting today or tomorrow, we'll see what happens. But just keep some positivity, okay? I know it seems bleak right now. Let's just keep some positivity, keep some good energy. It's still only February 3rd, okay? Let's remember that. I know there's urgency. I know people are getting worried. Let's keep some positive energy in here. I truly believe we're going to hit opening day. I truly believe it. It's going to be okay, everybody. He's Vinny. I'm Dom. Thanks for listening, and keep on swinging.
You are Locked On Brewers, your daily Milwaukee Brewers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay.